We've spent the first part of our session talking about the operation of the vehicles during the testing phase. What we would envision is, of course, after the testing phase, there's going to be some operation of the vehicle either by the public or, for lack of a better phrase, outside of the testing phase. Are there certain, and what we are soliciting comments on now, are there performance or safety standards that we should be focusing on that would need to be met before we allowed basically a general public operation of the vehicles on public roads? We'd like to receive comments on that. Now, our friends from Google have been providing a lot of comments so far. I'm sure there's other manufacturer reps out there, other people who would be interested in at least giving us some information on that. Thank you.
Hi, Steve Psycho from Chrysler.
Morning, Steve.
I just wanted to mention briefly that there is some work done in the Society of Automotive Engineers, SAE. They're developing two standards. One is more of a definition standard that goes through the different levels of automation that Mr. Medford had discussed earlier. As well, there is also a standard on testing, which you might find interesting as well, at least to review.
Do you think that there's stuff that they're developing that we should also consider as part of, our process of specifying in regulations what the standards should be?
They should be at least reviewed and looked at, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? One of the issues that we see a lot of media attention to is the financial responsibility issue. And I mentioned it earlier when we talk about what a manufacturer has to submit as the proof of financial responsibility to the department for during the testing phase, is their concern about what that means because the statute doesn't necessarily specify what that would be in the outside of the testing phase. And we'd like to hear comments with respect to that. Are we going to rely on the continuation of anyone who operates an autonomous vehicle has to have proof of $5 million of insurance? Or are we going to fall back into a mode of more the traditional model of what the vehicle code specifies as proof of financial responsibility? Should there be some concerns that the operation of an autonomous vehicle have a greater degree of insurance than is required for other vehicles? We'd like to hear comments on that subject. You guys are a tough crowd. It's like, it's like I'm sitting here with a room full of shy people. Oh. Steve's not shy. Thank you.
I try not to be shy. You mentioned the $5 million bond. I think that maybe serves a couple of purposes. One that, shows that there's the responsibility is there for a manufacturer. The level of that amount is, I think, something to consider, and I think we like where it's at because it prevents, it allows people who have, or companies that have the technology to implement this successfully, allows them to work on it. And would, I guess, serve as a standard
almost
of entry.
Like a safety barrier.
Yes, a standard of entry, I guess I would call it. For, because if you have someone who is a third party who does not have that expertise, that's where we may run into some issues. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, as Rosemary's coming forward, one of the things that a lot of people have a concept of is in our regulatory process, will we be exploring issues as who is responsible for an accident, who bears liability when an accident occurred? Is it the manufacturer? Is it the manufacturer of the autonomous technology? Is it the driver? That is probably something that has to be addressed in another proceeding at some point in the future. it doesn't necessarily fall within the scope of what the department has been tasked with, because as if you look at the clear language of the statute, what we are required to look into is basically what is the insurance that's submitted during the testing phase. So that is an issue that will probably have to be addressed, but it may not necessarily be addressed in our first set of regulations.
Thanks for that clarification. And I think this is a real concern from a consumer standpoint, is the question of liability and who's covered. And again, I would urge caution on that. And California has had a history of problems with third-party bad faith and the lack of recourse of victims who are not in the vehicle that's insured, but are struck by the vehicle, having recourse against the insurance company. So, given that history, it's a genuine concern, and we hope that the department would solicit more information about how current insurance coverage is working or not working for third parties,
Okay.
and factor that into its consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment on that? Okay. We talked earlier, and I don't want to beat a dead horse on this subject, but restrictions on time, place, and manner. But I was speaking of it in the realm of operating during the testing phase. Once we get to the process where we're getting a certification by the manufacturer for a greater operation of the vehicles by the public, should we consider restrictions on where the vehicles can be operated at that time? Again, under the time, place, and manner type of a restriction. See, Mr. Medford is coming forward.
So I think when it's all done and the products are developed, that different companies may actually have different capabilities. So I think it's important that each company disclose what its limitations are, and that those limitations be required to be conveyed to the person that's going to be operating or driving the vehicle. But I think to try to do it in the regulation is sort of worrisome in terms of having a dampening effect on the technology development process, and each company may have a different capability and different kinds of limitations. So it would seem kind of inappropriate to try to guess in the regulation what those limitations might be or should be. I think that more fundamental is just ensuring that whoever deploys a product for operation fully discloses, and you're aware of the limitations, and the public is aware of the limitations, and the vehicle won't operate in those conditions autonomously.
With that thought, do you think that that is something that we would want to address in the certification process for the manufacturer once we get outside the testing phase, a recognition of what the limits are of the technology that they want to operate?
Yes, I could fully see a certification process, that a company that certifies its products will identify as a part of that certification process the limitations specifically. No company in business will want to claim its product's going to do something that they know in its design and intent wasn't ever intended for that purpose. And I think that happens today all the time in the vehicle industry. I think it's kind of the way it should emerge for this product technology as well.
And when you think about it, when we get to that certification process, there would be an application, and there would be an approval process of the application. Would you think that we would need to basically, once we approve that application, approve it maybe with some restrictions based on what's been certified?
Yes, it seems to me that's right. The approval process would be companies saying what the limitations are, you saying that, and therefore, certifying and approving the certification based on those known disclosures about the limitations of the technology. That would seem reasonable and appropriate, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to comment on that subject? We were just speaking of the oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead, please. First state your name.
You now have your third Googler here.
I'm sorry.
I'm the third person from Google to get up to speak. My name's David Estrada. Hi.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that. We think that there needs to be some ability for the capabilities of the vehicle to grow. So I don't think you'd want to restrict the vehicle to operate only where it initially says it's capable of operating, in case a vehicle gets put out that starts capability for freeway, but later on it may actually add capability for other roads. So you wouldn't want to restrict it only to where they begin, because they may in fact have a way of updating technology on an ongoing basis. And in even over-the-air updates, these cars are going to be very advanced, and you wouldn't want to say you cannot actually grow your capabilities.
Would you envision that as part of the application and certification process, as the technology grows, you can then reapply and maybe have us consider the additional capabilities of the technology as it advances? Because, you know, one thing I'm thinking is in a safety mode. I wouldn't want you, should we be concerned that as your technology advances, it advances beyond what we've already certified it for, and we really haven't had that certification from you that it's safe to do so?
I think this is definitely the tough point for you guys and for everyone. I don't think you want to have a process that makes it very difficult and slow and cumbersome to innovate. So I think that's what you want to make sure that you're avoiding is companies may innovate, and the innovation may be improving safety. And the company should get that safety improvement out as quickly as possible. And if the company is pushed into a loop of certification each time it needs to push something out, it actually just, it can not only quash innovation in pushing boundaries, it can quash innovation in improving safety. So I think you want something that allows the company to self-certify, very much the way NHTSA operates. The company self-certifies. We are able to do these features. And perhaps we will update you. Maybe there's a process, maybe it's an online process, where the company says, we have vehicle number 49X, and vehicle number 49X, upon the initial application, can do this, and we're being certified. Perhaps later on, we update you when we can do more. But in each case, it's a self-certification as opposed to an approval loop.